God knew from the beginning that we would face grief and injury, trauma, and so many other obstacles in life. And He designed our brains to be able to adapt to those hard things that we face. But we have to be willing to do the work to point our brain into the right direction. You may have seen the old cartoons. I guess it's used, I don't know, maybe they are all old. The little red guy on one shoulder, little red guy with the pitchfork, little guy in white with the halo, and you're trying to make a decision about something, and he's like, oh, you should do this. And oh no, you shouldn't do that. You should do this. And they go back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. And, it's funny. But it really is the kind of thing that happens in our brain every day, including when we're grieving, maybe especially when we're grieving, because, we're going back and forth with, oh, I shoulda, coulda, woulda over here, and I know I need to move forward over here. And the thing is, all of those thoughts are foundational. They're like so critical for what happens next. I have personally found, and I've talked about this in some of my other videos, that the more I focus on the right thoughts. I've talked about, noting, I say marking those rocks, noting where God showed up for you in the past, marking those places where God has showed up here and here and here and here and here and here, because you can look at those things and then you can move forward. I've talked about, writing gratitude. I've talked about leaning into the grief. But today, what I really want to talk about is renewing our mind. Recently in my devotions, a verse came up, verse I'm familiar with, Romans 12:2. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Read that verse many times through my life. But the little devotion that went with it really talked about that renewing of the mind. And, I thought about it in the context of grief. And, we hear it all the time, right? Positive feeds positive, negative feeds negative. The more you dwell on negative things, the more negative everything feels. The more you focus on the positive, the more positive you feel. But it's really true. It is really true that the more you think on true things, it's a rewiring situation with our brain. So I learned a really big word this week. I heard it a few times over the course of, I don't know, I've probably heard it other times in my life, and it just went right past me. But, you know, as I've been gobbling up information about walking through grief, I know it's come up, but the word is neuroplasticity. And the definition I got for this in simple terms is your brain's amazing ability to change, adapt, and rewire itself throughout your entire life, forming new connections and pathways to learn new skills, recover from injury, and handle new challenges. This is the kind of thing my husband would have been all over. He would have been like, oh yeah. Because, I mean, he's probably talked to me about stuff like that in the past. And again, but it's just cool, you know, like, again, spoiler alert, God knew that we're going to face all these things, and he designed our brain that way. And so to me, it's like you read something scientific and you're like, what? Oh my gosh. But, you know, I have found that the more I let myself think about forward motion, the more I flip the script, I guess. Flip the script. One of the things I read somewhere was, you know I've said many times throughout this process, I just can't. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't imagine this. I can't fathom that. And I read, add one word to that is yet. I can't yet. I can't do this yet. I can't do that yet. Because it leaves it open for hope. It doesn't let you sit in that spot of I can't. And I think about, you know, some of the things that have been so hard to fathom. I've many times, you know, said my life right now feels like this big blank sheet of white paper sitting in front of me. And I can't imagine what to fill it with. My brain says, oh wow, like I could do whatever I want now. Well, within limitations, but I could do whatever I want. And I don't know what I want to do. And so I think one of the things in this devotion that they encouraged is anytime you have a negative thought or a lie, I mean, there's things that I've said out loud many times that I know are lies. I recognize them as that. And slowly I've been learning to replace them with truth. Because, right, that's what we always have to do. You have to replace those lies with truth. I'm so sorry. Lost my train of thought. Sorry, guys. Give me a second here. And, you know, here's one. I've said, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. I don't even know how many times. I've lost count of how many times I've said that since my husband died. I can't do this. I just can't. And it's a lie. I can. I knew from the beginning that I could. In my, like, I don't know if it's my heart or my brain, but I had set a marker. Like, I know I'm going to get through this. I knew I could get through this. And then got lost in the explosion of the messiness of it all. So the truth is, God says he has a future for me and he has plans for me. What is it? Old Mike living better. He says, if you ain't dead, you ain't done. I'm still breathing. I still have purpose here. And I know that. I know that deep down within me. I know that. But there's days I still say, I can't do this. I just can't. But I'm learning to replace that. When I start to say, I can't do this, I'm like, I can. God has a plan and a purpose for me. God has a future for me. I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. Or, you know, it can be as simple as you say, I can't. I can try. Another one I've said many times is, I can't see my life without him. And I do. I struggle to see it. I struggle to see what goes on that big blank page in front of me. Because the love of my life is not, he doesn't get to be a part of those plans. But God says, trust in me, and I will direct thy paths. So I've really been trying to employ that more and more, of not just thinking happy thoughts, not just, being all Miss Positivity, but when I feel that heavy negative, I do think there is value in giving yourself time, and I've talked about this in other videos, giving yourself time to feel all the feelings, right? Like, let yourself feel all the feelings. And you can still do that in between, right? When you have a day that you're just, sometimes we just got to just like, let it all out. As I've said, let it all hang out. I think there's room for that. But we cannot sit in those places. We cannot stay in those places. We cannot sit there and linger too long. So just try. Find something that feels, that's what I've done. I find something that feels easy to counter, right? You hear the little negativity, lie. And your brain says, wait a minute. I know that's not true. So I'm going to choose to flick you off my shoulder, and I'm going to listen to this guy over here, and I'm going to sit in that for a little while. And I can tell you from experience that the more you do it, the more you replace those, the easier it is to, the more you replace those lies and those negative backward motion thoughts with forward motion thoughts, the easier it is, and it becomes a habit. It becomes a habit, but it also, it's rewiring your brain. So just like I talked about in earlier videos about, you know, the more we sit in that grief, the stuff that it does to our body, it's the same with our brain. The more we keep feeding our brain those things, the more our brain gets stuck there with the I can't, or it's no use, or like I'm nothing, whatever is going through your brain. I mean, I think we all know. We get to that place. We get to that place where we know. There's grace for the time when we just need to sit and soak in it. But when you get to that place where you know, yeah, I know that's a crock. I'm just saying that. It's a crock, though. That's when we have to make that conscious choice. That's when the work starts coming in. That's when we have to make the decision of, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give into that, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wallow in it. And if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. But I will say, the sooner that we can start countering it with no, actually, and especially when you can counter it with God's truths, when you can come back with, no, actually, God says I can do all things, and I'm going to lean into that, and I'm going to believe, even though maybe I don't see it right now, maybe I don't see like how that works out, but God tells me I can do all things through Him. And so that's what I'm going to tell myself. And I'm going to keep telling myself until I fully believe it. Because God's word does not return void. That is a guarantee. God's word does not return void. So you keep saying it, you're going to see it. I think that's really all I really wanted to say today. I don't want to belabor it. I'm trying to learn to not belabor what I have to say to you. Just know this, that what I'm sharing here is, it's what I'm learning, right? And I believe wholeheartedly that the things that we go through and the way we find hope and help, we're not meant to just sit on that and hold it to ourselves. We're meant to share it. And so I'm only sharing this because I'm seeing it work in my own life. And I just want to encourage you, wherever you're at, if this feels like she's like full of it, like there's no way. Like I said, I fully believe there is grace for wherever you are at in this journey. And you have to go through at your own pace. Everyone's journey through grief is different, similar, but different. And it's our own timeline, because you can't move forward until you're ready to move forward. You have to want to move forward first. And that can take time. And it can take however much time it needs to take. But I do know that the sooner we can find our way into forward motion, because again, just the way our brains work and our body works, it's like the longer we sit and marinate in it, the more damage is done to our body, the more hardwired our brain becomes to that, and it gets harder and harder and harder to get out of. I just understand enough to know that I want to find my way through this. And it does not mean that we love our person any less. Sitting and letting our lives sink into despair does not honor our loved one. It does not bring them back. It does nothing but harm us. So my prayer is that each one of us can find, again, our own timeline, and whatever that is. But as soon as our hearts and minds, as soon as we can move forward with that, and again, it's not moving on, it's not moving on, it's not getting over them, it's moving forward. And I know for me that my Joe would be devastated to see me stuck grieving over him for a long time. And he would want me to find my way back, for the people that we love that are here. So I hope that you found some encouragement in this. I hope something I've said has resonated, and has been a help to you, an encouragement to you. It breaks my heart that we ever have to walk through this, but the beautiful part of walking through grief and seeing God knows our deepest heartaches. And I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to leave that there. I think there's beauty to be found in this. There's beauty to be found in what we're walking through. And we may not be able to see it today, but I have every confidence that we will lean into the Lord and seek Him as you move forward. And I'm so grateful that you're here, and I will see you again soon.